That is really that's a real guitar riff, and that's real crowd noises from the 500 people packed into the garage.
It was
How we doing?
It was a real guitar, yeah.
Everybody good? Did the wind yesterday? Nuts. I don't know if there was were there tornadoes anywhere?
Nuts.
It was It was crazy. It was
just nuts everywhere.
It was scary. There was one point where I heard some noises and I thought, oh, finally my windows have broke and just gave in from this crazy wind that we got going on. And I was surprised that the garage didn't lose power. As I was driving here today, there was a power line, the pole deal outside that they were working on putting it back in the ground.
Well, we actually lose power here pretty easily because we're at the back of the section.
At the back where nobody cares. They're like, oh, it's the last batch.
Yeah.
If it goes down, it goes down.
The crazies in the back. Power went out. We don't need to restore it.
Well, I've been under the weather for an unusual amount of time. Usually, if I get
AKA under the nuts.
If I get a cold, it lasts like 24 hours, and that's it. But I've had this thing for a while. I don't know what it is, but
got some nuts in your throat.
The good news is that I've been catching up on a lot of TV over the past. Yeah, as I'm just lying there on the couch.
So but it's good. I mean, we work really hard, and it's pretty bad that you have to relax when you get a cold. Like that's the only time.
But there's a bazillion other things I would rather be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up something earlier, one of the documentaries that I think, were we told? Did somebody tell us to watch it, or what? I don't think.
Were we paid to watch it?
No, I don't think it was that. I meant, did a listener suggest it, or
abducted in plain sight?
Yeah. So there are some people out there. God bless you if you're one of these people, but there are some people that are diehards that no matter what true crime docuseries comes out, they will watch it. They will tune in, and that's fantastic.
It's one of their hobbies.
I don't know that. I don't think I had an email from a listener to watch it. I think it was just like a recommendation. Was it Amazon or Netflix? Do you recall?
It was Netflix.
Those things are just running together for me. But you know how when you open it up, sometimes they've filtered some things to the top for you that seem like suggestions, like, oh, you might like watching this.
Yeah, they have this new feature now when there's like a new movie hits, like it'll be like the first thing that starts playing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I have mixed feelings about that. After I opened up Netflix, I think it was Saturday maybe, and the suggestion was Paddleton with Ray Romano.
Oh, I like Ray Romano, yeah.
And so I watched like the first little clip, kind of like the trailer, and it was kind of dark on some level, but there was also a joke in there, and I was like, well, that's kind of funny. I could use kind of, especially a lot of these comedians, they go into the drama world. They go into, it's like Steve Carell.
Right.
Like all his movies are just to make you cry now. And
you know what though? I like the Steve Carell. Like I think that
didn't say I didn't like him.
I know, but I think he's becoming one of those actors or actresses for me. We were talking last week and I said, I kind of have a list of people that it seems like no matter what they are in it's good or worth watching. You got to give it a go, even if it seems like something you wouldn't be into.
Right.
He's starting to work his way onto that short list of people for me.
Well, Ray Romano's on that list for me, and one of the reasons because he did a show called Men of a Certain Age that was just brilliant. It was a brilliant show. Never seen anything like it, and because it's so creative and such of a different mindset than the norm, it just never took off, which was a shame. But yeah, so Paddleton.
Paddington? No, that's
Paddleton.
A bear. That's a bear, I think. Paddleton. Look, I did see the little the little clip,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. When you turn it on, the little clip starts playing, and it looked like it was Ray Romano and another actor in a doctor's office.
Which I should know his name because he was absolutely brilliant in this movie.
He's a good actor, but here's where I'm going to have a problem with that Paddleton.
The fact that you're just going to cry your face off.
Well, the other guy that we don't know his name that's sitting in the doctor's office, he played a guy in the second series of Goliath, which I absolutely loved. Goliath season 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
But he plays a bad guy, and he's like disturbed. I mean, his character is just so I don't even want to get into it. It's so disturbing, and he does such a good job playing that character that I don't know that I can see him as anything else. You know what I mean? You know how sometimes an actor and actress is so good in a role that it kind of ruins them for you.
Yeah, but I think you'll have no problem. 5 minutes in,
I'm not doing it.
Different thing. You'll cry your face off. But also, what's sad about this movie is that because it came out so soon that, and it's such great acting, and I think that's going to be overlooked because of the story. People are going to go, well, the story's sad, but it's like the acting is just brilliant, and I think it'll be overlooked for awards later next year.
What's the name of that one again?
Paddleton.
Oh. I thought you said you hadn't seen it.
Oh, I saw it.
Oh, I'm confused. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, so I watched
That's why you said you'll cry your eyes out, because you know.
Cry your face off.
You know that the face, you'll at some point.
It'll melt your face.
You'll be halfway through the movie, you'll look down, and your face will be on the carpet.
Well, what was weird was there's a lot of choke up moments, where you're getting choked up.
You got to fight through it. You're like,
yeah, well, so I ended up fighting through it, and and this kind of hits home like with some stuff that's going on in just like personal life, but I got through the movie, and then I realized like the crying my face off didn't happen, and it should have. So now I'm going to end up crying my face off, but I don't know when.
It's saved up for later.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to watch like what's that show?
The tear bank is full, and it's just waiting. It's just waiting to pop.
I'm going to have to watch like a Grey's Anatomy or an episode of This Is Us or something, and just let it go.
Like when some random dirtbag pulls up to an ATM and tries to bust into it with a screwdriver. You never know when it's going to happen. You could be at the Starbucks, or tomorrow is Taco Bell Tuesday. Do you still do Taco Tuesday? Sometimes you end up at the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
You could be at the Taco Bell tomorrow, and the tier bank is just going to.
I'm going to stop.
Door is going to open up.
I'm going to stop being friends with people that don't do Taco Tuesday.
Would you like sauce with that?
Why is this world so sad?
Extra fire sauce.
Yeah.
Please.
In my eye.
I'm having a moment.
Shoot it in my eye.
What was that documentary again? Name that one. The one we started off talking about.
Abducted in Plain Sight.
Oh, I hated it.
It was awful.
I hated it. I hated the people in it. I hated the story.
Well, you can't do that because there are victims.
They might be they might be victims. I feel like the daughter is a victim.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the parents are
yeah. Morons.
Yeah, it's weird. I wouldn't. My recommendation is don't waste your time.
Well, the thing too was
some people liked it.
I posted on the Instagram that I was going to watch, and there was all these comments coming in. I didn't know what to make of it, and it really made it seem like, this is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But it was a crazy story, but it was put together so poorly that the whole time I'm going, this is fake. This is a fake story.
Mm-hmm.
And this is of this girl was abducted. There was, as far as we know, molestation to a minor.
Right.
And that's a crime, and that's a crime that I hold as far as like, those are the crimes that get me the most, as far as like piss me off the most. and this was put together so poorly and came across as such a phony story that I just couldn't believe most of it. And I tried to look up some of the facts that of the story that they were telling, and I could not find record of some of the parts on the interwebs.
Right.
The only time that you could is if you stopped like Googling like real words and you started Googling, child abduction, the person's name, and then you'd get a bunch of information, but all the information would have been about the documentary. There wasn't like, oh, well, there's record of this. We have records of this, or all these newspaper clippings that they keep showing in the documentary. I don't even believe those were real because I started looking up the newspaper that they claimed that it was coming from, and that newspaper didn't even look the same. So,
I mean, I felt horrible for the real victim, but that was the problem with the documentary. It's like, so many of the cases we talk about, that there's a whole garage full of victims. You have somebody who was victimized by some asshole, and then what ends up being is their families are victims, so forth and so on. And in this particular case, and forgive me, because I didn't watch the whole thing. I couldn't finish it. So if there was some kind of revelation at the end or some bigger part of the story that I missed out on and I'm being an asshole here, then I apologize. But that's my caveat. I didn't finish it.
Well, the guy that they were talking about, it started out as a book.
He was he technically charged with anything?
No,
or convicted?
What gets weird is, this is where it's difficult because we know that this person existed. We know that some of these events took place, but the first abduction, when she came back, there was no signs of any sexual contact. So they couldn't even charge him with that. But, her claim is that there was. I'm not going to not believe her.
Right.
Let's give her the benefit of the doubt. But it is strange that you'd be gone that long. You'd have, sex. Well, let's not even call it sex. You're going to be raped by this older gentleman, and there's going to be no physical proof of it. Mm-hmm. So basically what you get in the end is that they put out this book, and when they put out the book, the guy that they're talking about
accusing,
they call him B in the story, he sues them, and he's trying to get them to, and he didn't really care what it kind of seems like in the documentary is that he didn't really care so much about the book. You made the book, okay. Everything that you said in the book is untrue.
According to him.
Right. So I'm going to state that on the record. But he had a problem because he heard they were making it into a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And he was just like, this has to
He's
stop.
Like, enough is enough. Like, yeah.
Right. And then at some point she's saying, no, we're not trying to make it into a movie. Or yeah, they were, but it's not going to happen, whatever. But then it's like the guy dies and you make this documentary. And
now he's not around to defend himself.
Right. Yeah, and that's, but, I mean, and what they claim is that other women came forward. But that, again, that's a claim that he can't, argue. Now,
right.
Now the one claim is that they claim that he got charged with a rape and he spent a year in jail. Now, all I would say is produce that information. If I know that that's true, then I'm more likely to believe the other stuff. But I think because it was so poorly put together, and I think on top of that, the fact that the girl that, is the victim in the story, she's an actor. She's a real life actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think some of the scenes.
I see what you're saying.
Is she being authentic, or is she acting her way through some of the scenes? I mean, one of the scenes is she was talking about her father's business being burnt down. And again, accusing this guy of burning it down. Well, actually accusing him of paying. It was something ridiculous. Like, well, he told these inmates that he'd pay him $1,000 a week or $1,000 a month for a long period. Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to tell me that these criminals went and burned down a building, which burnt down like half the city, again, I had a hard time even trying to find any talk about this in those town newspapers. And if he told him he was going to pay him that much and he stopped paying him, eventually they found him and probably beat the shit out of him. And we'd have some record of this. Couldn't find record of that either. But it was this whole scene about how her dad was hugging the family and saying, "Let it burn, let it burn. I got everything right here that I need." And she's crying, and it's like, it just seemed a little over dramatic. And it's like, not to mention that your father was driving in a car with this guy, and the guy had a hard on, and he decided to reach over and relieve the guy sexually, and then had a homosexual relationship with this guy.
Well, and
that's kind of just panned over real quickly.
Yeah. I mean, look, that was what was troubling for me. Our hearts and thoughts are always with the victim and the victims. But in this case, as you said, it was poorly done, this documentary. It was poorly put together, and almost to a sense where it does seem fake almost, right? And so therefore it makes it hard to champion these people that are coming forward, and they're like, we're finally able to tell our story, and God bless them for getting the strength together to tell their story. But it was just it was tough to get behind it.
Yeah, I mean, basically the story is, here's this guy that they meet, a family friend. He becomes interested in one of the daughters. It's interesting to me that he wasn't interested in the other daughters, even though they're similar age. That just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But then he has a sexual relationship with the mother. He has a homosexual relationship with the father. He basically wants to molest and marry this young girl. And just things that you wouldn't believe would happen. Like, he goes away and gets therapy, and the therapist tells him that he has to share a bed with this girl that he wants to molest, and he lays in bed while listening to tapes that describe him having sex with this girl, and he did this like 4 times a week for like 6 months. And the fact that the parents were allowing this to happen, and then at the end of the documentary, the victim is sitting there saying, "Hey, I had to forgive this guy, so he couldn't have any power over me," which I totally get. But it's like, the other question should be, have you forgiven your parents?
Well, that's the thing that made it hard for me to watch, because look, and I'm just an outsider looking in. I don't know the whole story.
You're not a part of their family?
Shit, I didn't even finish the documentary.
Did you give B a hand job?
But
because that's like, to be in the family, you have to relieve him sexually.
The thing that was so difficult about the whole story was, my take was that it was almost like the parents of this poor girl allowed her to be molested. And yeah. I know their story is, we didn't know that this was going on, but it to me, from an outsider looking in, it was like, how the hell did you not know? One, I mean, it just really, like you said, it almost felt like this girl who's now an adult, you want her to be mad at her parents too. And I get that she doesn't seem to be from what I watched, but it seemed like there was a lot of blame that could have been pushed around, and I thought should have been pushed around. And
they did kind of hit on the fact that the first abduction, because she's basically abducted twice, but the first abduction, what's interesting about it is that they don't charge him. I believe the state ends up charging him, or the government ends up charging him. He ends up having to do time for that, but because the parents won't come forward and press charges, their hands are tied. Now, the reason why they didn't press charges is because they have this homosexual relationship that went on and this other affair that went on, and they didn't want that to come out in their community. Mm-hmm. This is also a time where communities were smaller, and something like that could cause you to have to close your shop, move to a different city. But if you really thought that this guy, but after that even if you don't press charges, he spends a little time in jail. If he comes around you again, you stop it. You don't let there be any more contact. But they just were so naive. Oh, well, there's no signs of him sexually abusing our daughter, so maybe he didn't. So now let's let him sleep in the bed with her.
It's just, it's disappointing.
It's ridiculous.
You can move, you can build a new store, build a new shop, build a new business. What you can't risk is ruining your daughter's life, right? Or allowing someone to ruin her life.
But I'd say that there was a lot of confusion going on there. I mean, I think her father was a homosexual male that was living as a straight male, and that was probably huge for him to deal with, and probably still huge for him to deal with. And then there's also a family trying to stay together, and the dynamics of what that would be like, because here's the mom that's easily duped by this guy. Well, why is she easily duped by this guy? Well, her husband's not attracted to her, and hasn't been, maybe ever. You know what I mean? So but it's so poorly put together that it just comes off as completely phony. To the point where I was looking it up, and one of the number one searches is abducted at plain sight. Is this fake?
Oh yeah.
So that's just bad. But what's interesting about this, and I don't want to give spoiler alert.
And I think we've ruined the whole thing.
Well, who cares? I mean, they ruined it. So, no, but spoiler alert, if you haven't watched True Detective Season 3, what's interesting about this abducted in plain sight was the second abduction. Again, spoiler alert, so if you're watching True Detective, turn this off. What happened in the second abduction of Abducted in Plain Sight is that he ends up abducting her, but then enrolling her into like a Catholic boarding school. And then he pretended that he was a CIA agent, and what he would do is he put her into school, and then on the weekends he'd come visit her. See what I'm saying? So if you then watch the finale of True Detective Season 3 last night, you'd realize a similar thing happened in that story. So it's interesting with these True Detective seasons how they take pieces of real life and put it into the story.
One thing I do want to go through here today, this is an update, but it's not an update on a case that we did, but it's interesting stuff because it plays into a couple of different things that we've talked about throughout the history of our show, plus a lot of stuff going on with cases and breaks in cases, cold cases last year. And this is from the Los Angeles Times. So if you want to see the picture that I'm that they're referencing, you can find that at Los Angeles Times on their website. And you could probably just by Googling the name James Allen Neal. So they show a picture. It's an old picture. And it says James Allen Neal is seen in an undated photo released by Newport Beach police, who hope to find additional witnesses in the murder case against him related to a 1973 slaying of Linda O'Keefe. And it says they're hoping to jog the memories of longtime residents who might have crossed paths with the suspect in the kidnapping and killing of 11-year-old Linda O'Keefe in July of 1973. Authorities have released a photo of James Allen Neal to show what he may have looked like at the time of the slayings. The photo is thought to have been taken between the late 1970s and early 1980s, Newport Beach police said. Neal, today, is 72 years old. He was arrested last Tuesday by authorities in Colorado, where he lives and remains in custody. Barring any legal challenges, he awaits extradition to California, according to Newport Beach police. Neal has been charged with special circumstances murder, kidnapping, and lewd and lascivious acts against a minor under 14 in connection with Linda's death. Authorities say Neal went by the name James Albert Layton Jr. at the time of the killing. Investigators believe he lived in Southern California in the 1970s and changed his name following an incident in Florida. So I bring this up for a couple of reasons, because they busted this guy after all these years. That was 1972. They just arrested him last week.
Got him.
And this was because of genealogy. You know, something we've discussed several times. DNA from the crime scene.
Rub the genie and he comes out of you rub the lamp and genie comes out of the lamp.
Well, Newport Beach detectives in 2018 contacted Parabon Nanolabs, who we've discussed several times, a Virginia-based medical lab which used DNA from the crime scene to calculate a possible suspect's facial composite. They released one of what he would have looked like in his mid-20s. They believe the perpetrator to be in his mid-20s, as well as a composite of someone in his late 60s or early 70s. Genealogy is what caught up with this guy even all these decades later. So that's something we've championed on our show and will continue to do so in high hopes of what will 2019 bring. How many other cold cases will be cracked and solved because of this new technology?
Yeah. I think the tough thing with some of these cases that are not being solved is because the DNA that they have from the crime scene is contaminated in some way, shape, or form.
Or there's not enough.
Yeah, I watched this 20-minute breakdown of the JonBenet Ramsey DNA that they used, I think in 2003 to clear the family. And then it's tested again in 2007 and 2008. You know, it's like, why are we testing it again? What was done wrong in 2003 that you have to test it again? And then eventually they used it to clear the family. But when you break it down, they could take some DNA samples from you and there would be some matching figures from me to be matching figures, because there could be a mixture of 2 people, maybe 3 people. So I think until... And that's obviously just one case, but we've talked about it with the Delphi murders case. Is there DNA? Because we keep getting these people that are suspects, and then we keep, time passes. At first it was quickly, here's the suspect, please, quickly. That's not them. Well, how are they clearing these people so fast? And then all of a sudden that kind of started slowing down, and that's what made me think they're testing DNA. Well, they keep clearing this person. So then that's where you start questioning, after hundreds and hundreds of suspects that you have essentially cleared or won't name a suspect, is the DNA in that case, is it contaminated? Was it collected properly? What's going on with that we are not able to solve that? So yes, what's going to happen in 2019? You're going to definitely see some cases that are solved because of this technology. But how many of them are unsolvable? Does that make sense?
Unsolvable because of there's a lot that are unsolvable, and
unsolvable in the fact that they have DNA, but it was collected poorly or it's contaminated. But what I'm saying
is, but it's not just that though. Like there are hundreds of points of factors involved in this action. So when these different labs, and Parabon Nanolabs is not the only company out there doing it, but there's a bunch of different factors to consider, because there are a lot of cases where they may have DNA that are not good candidates for this type of technology. Mm-hmm. They need, and I'll put it in the only way that I understand it is in lay terms. I'm not going to pretend to know all of the science in and outs of the whole thing. But what I've been told by both Parabon Nanolabs, directly from them, as well as other articles that I've read on other companies doing the same type of investigations, and from law enforcement as well, is one, they need a certain type of DNA to be able to do this. And 2, they need a decent amount of it as well. So if you have a case where there's very little DNA, if they're working with a small amount, a small sample size, it's not a good candidate and not a good fit for this type of investigation. And again, they need a certain type of DNA. So not every case, it's not going to work where we can just go, oh, every cold case that we got on the shelf, we can clear all of our books. We can solve all these unsolved homicides because all we got to do is take this little thing and punch it into a computer and boopity boop, boop, boop. We got our guy. Let's go to Colorado and arrest him.
Yeah, I'm just saying that this is not going to happen with the JonBenet Ramsey case. I mean, after watching this, report on the way they collected this evidence and the way that the people in power have misrepresented this evidence, I mean, it's shocking.
Well, and I know that you're just repeating what some other people have said, but I think to say that they've officially cleared John or Patsy or both is can't be a correct statement.
Well, I mean, you'd have to look into the case more, but there's actually a report that the prosecutor lays out. I believe it was in 2003.
Well, I don't want to get into it too much because I know we want to cover that case, and we'll need to go through the facts then and there. But regarding one of the problems with her case in particular was the way that they collected her fingernails. When they clipped her fingernails, they used the same clippers for each fingernail, which is technically not the way that they're supposed to do it. They're supposed to use a new set or clean and sterilize the set that they're using and then collect and catalog
right
each fingernail and what finger it came from. Therefore, whatever's collected from that fingernail or those fingernails can be used properly as evidence. If they found some kind of DNA under one finger and they used the same clippers without sterilizing or cleaning them or using a new set, essentially it either could happen or you could make an argument for, if you're the defense team, that something collected underneath one fingernail ended up on all of them because it was transferred during the course of you trying to collect evidence.
Right. The DA, the ex-DA, cleared the Ramseys in 2008.
Right. That guy's an idiot. Was it a guy or a girl?
It was a she.
A she? Oh, sorry. She's an idiot. So this case, though, with this Linda O'Keefe and this James Neal being arrested, one thing that's interesting about this is that there was talk of Linda O'Keefe's murder possibly being connected to Amy Mihaljevic.
Right.
And the reason that is because one of the suspects, and he's, one of James Renner's suspects and a suspect in the eye of a lot of people in the public, he lived in California, and he lived not too far from where this crime took place when it took place, when Linda O'Keefe was abducted and killed. She's 11, Amy was 10. So there was a lot of ways to make a connection between the two cases. So now we have this arrest in Linda O'Keefe's case, and it's interesting that they're releasing a photo of this guy, and it's even more interesting that he was going under a different name at one point in his life. But I wonder if they're going to be able to connect him to other things, or if this was just a one-off situation. But it looks like they might be trying to build, they have the DNA, but if they can't get him to confess, they're going to have to take him to trial, and therefore they may need, I don't know that they're going to need more to convict him.
Was her body found?
To be honest with you, I don't know the details of the Linda O'Keefe case so much. I believe that she was, but I don't want to state that I know for certain. But it looks like they're going to need, if he doesn't confess, or if he challenges this, that it looks like they're trying to get some witnesses and some other people to build a even stronger case against this guy. I don't think they'll have any problem putting him away from the little bits that I have seen. Back to the TV stuff though, Captain.
Mm-hmm.
I did watch BTK, A Killer Among Us. It was on Discovery ID channel. And it did have some interviews, some little interviews with his daughter, Carrie Rawson, with
Well, she came out with that book.
yeah, Dennis Rader's daughter, Carrie Rawson.
Yeah.
That was good. I liked that one. I think it was 2 hours long. A lot of commercials, I felt. But it was very good.
What did you watch it on?
I recorded it and watched it later.
Right.
So, but I felt like I was fast forwarding a lot during the course of watching it. It was very good, and it was I don't think I'd ever seen pictures or video of Ken Landwehr. He was the guy that they air quotes here, super cop, that the FBI pushed for a super cop, and he was that guy. He was kind of Dennis Rader's sworn enemy.
Yeah, could you imagine if somebody called you in and you're just a round-the-mill cop, they call you in? Got a job for you. What's that? I want you to be a super cop.
Super cop time.
I'd be like, okay.
It's better than RoboCop.
I've been doing super cop stuff since I got here. Just haven't got the pay grade yet.
Right. But that was interesting, and I've always had a fondness for that investigation, and it's really I still think it's such an incredible, interesting story to have.
It's very interesting.
And it's very much similar to Green River, where you had, or Golden State Killer, whatever however many monikers he has. But to have all these years in the span of the crimes and the span of the investigation, and then finally having an ending, in a way, kind of like True Detective, where,
right.
It's 35 years of on again, off again investigation before they finally figure out what actually happened.
Yeah.
What was your final takeaway on True Detective, by the way, for season 3?
I thought it was good. I mean, I don't think there was any, as far as the finale goes, and like we already said, spoilers on that. There wasn't a bunch of twists. There was, and then even like if you even want to call it a twist, that's at the end. It's so set up and softballed right in front of your face that if you don't catch it the first time, I just kind of question your intelligence at all. But because it was so blatant, you know what I mean? The clue that they give you at the end,
right?
It's just so blatant. Where it's like, I think they could even done that a little bit better, maybe, just so there was kind of a little aha moment. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was good because there was a lot of loose ends, and so there's a lot of questioning time gaps. What happened in 80, what happened in 90, what happened in here, and I like the fact that they tied all of those up.
Right.
So you're not like walking away going, what happened again? You know what I mean? I think they tied it up really well.
Well, I thought the story was phenomenal. I mean, from start to finish, season 3, I really liked the writing. I liked the actual story. I liked the mystery.
The actors were unbelievable.
The actresses, fantastic job from top to bottom. I can't think of a bad, a bad role or a bad cast member.
And what was interesting too was the son took a note that he was going to throw away, and he put it in his pocket. And I started thinking, what would be kind of cool? This guy didn't play a major part, and he's definitely not a major actor. He's not like an A-list guy. Like if I looked him up and told you who played the son of the detective, his name wouldn't ring a bell. But he did a good job. And I started thinking, what if they wrote a story with him in it?
And you know what? He's got the build and the look of somebody to me that is made for being a cop on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he's a strong young man. Well, he might be my age. I don't know how old he is, but he's a strong, intelligent dude, and he portrays himself as such. I mean, he's got kind of like a very athletic football player, almost kind of body.
Right.
Looks like the only thing though is there could have been a scene where he takes somebody down. I kept waiting for him to be like in some kind of confrontation and take somebody down.
Well, you know what they say, time is a circle or whatever. Remember that from season 1?
Yeah.
When they pull the guy down, and then Matthew McConaughey's character Russ goes, "What is that shit, Nietzsche?" Really, what's interesting about that is the way it's all written. Like the bread and butter of this True Detective is time, is going back and forth in time.
Right.
That's kind of like what makes it so fascinating. In this case, they went back in time and into 3 spots. But what I thought was interesting was the ending. The scene is almost like, you know, maybe not. I'm trying not to give. So, anyways, okay. Here's how I can explain it. The whole show, when it starts off, is a brother and a sister riding their bike down the street. And then bad stuff happens, right?
Mm.
And the show ends with a brother and sister riding their bike down the street. And to me, that was like, you know, back to the season 1, time is a circle. And maybe not the brother and sister that rode by them. Maybe nothing bad happened to them. But somewhere in a town, somewhere in the world, that cycle of story is repeating itself. And maybe some of the details are changed and some of the players are changed, but and they kind of allude to that in the ending, is that this stuff just keeps happening, that it will just keep happening. And it's just, and then the players are going to be different. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of interesting.
I thought it was
kind of a deeper thing that he was trying to portray throughout the story.
I thought it was as good as season 1. That's my opinion. I think it was as good as season 1. So
yeah, I think that a couple things that they're missing is season 1 had one episode that was maybe the best action film, suspense action film, or best hour of action suspense that was on TV ever.
Yeah,
in season 1, and
or maybe 2. I mean, season 1 was, I thought, much more action packed than season 3.
Yeah, I just think there could have been maybe like, you know, that especially like that shootout episode of season 3.
Yeah,
like they could have really turned that into a whole episode,
a little more suspenseful too,
or maybe half of an episode. Yeah, but it's like the in season 1 when Matthew McConaughey is, you know, goes into the projects with this like biker gang. It's like that is an intense episode. I mean, and I'm not a huge action fan guy, but it's like, but that it was so intense. I mean, some of the best. It's just great.
One of my buddies is diehard action guy, like film guy. And he, ever since we were little kids up to this day, and he does not like true crime. He doesn't really get into mystery shows or movies. And he did watch season 1. And he loved it. Absolutely loved it. I was surprised he was calling me to talk about it, to be honest with you. But his stamp that he put on season 1 was that part you're talking about where they go to the projects. He's like, my God, man, they're like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of some of the best action I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Ever seen.
And just so much suspense there. So no, I thought it was good. I mean, I like
great. I'm sad it's over.
Yeah. Yeah.
A good ending, though. I'm glad, I like the way that it ended.
Yeah, I like I said, I mean, just the fact that they tied up the loose ends. I mean, there's nothing worse than when they, even like with like a show like Sharp Objects, which is supposed to have a twist, but even when they kind of give you the ending, and then they definitely give you the ending, there's still like loose knots, and you're like,
Right, they could have cleaned it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Another thing I watched, and this is not true crime related, but I thought I have to say to someone, and Captain, you end up getting to be that person.
Yeah.
I watched Won't You Be My Neighbor, the Fred Rogers documentary on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
My God, man, that is really good.
Remember how you're telling me about how the Weezer covered the song Africa by Toto?
Yeah.
And you were telling me about how funny you thought it was with Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, he's supposed to be, he's acting like Rivers Cuomo in the video, right?
Yeah. I think it's a new video. The problem is sometimes I'll say something's new. Like,
it's new to you.
But then I find out it's 3 years old.
Dude, I did that I was telling you to watch something. I was like, have you seen the music video for blah, blah, blah? It's so good. And I was like, I had seen it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a Mumford & Sons video or somebody. I can't remember who. But I had saw it for the first time like a week before. And I was talking to, there's this bar that plays music videos. And I love the idea because I can just sit there and stare at that stuff all day. And I was like, why have I not seen this before? And the bartender, who was much younger and much more hip than me, said, yeah, this video is amazing. And I just saw it. I think I just saw it 2 days ago. So I assumed that it was new. Mm-hmm. And I was telling you about it at a party. I'm like, you got to check out this new music video. Find out on YouTube that it's like you said, it was like 3, 4, 5 years old, maybe.
Yeah. So Weezer has a tune where they're doing the whole Mr. Rogers thing.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Yeah. Which, since you're talking about Mr. Rogers,
they're doing the song, the intro song.
No,
the Rogers.
I think it's a cover of something else.
Okay.
But he goes in and puts on the cardigan and changes his shoes and does that whole thing. I watched it for a minute, and I really liked Weezer when they first came out.
Mm-hmm.
First few albums, but like, I don't know, kind of lost their edge for me.
Mm.
Like, they're still good, but it's just like, I also taught guitar lessons, so it was a lot of like, can you teach me Beverly Hills?
Right.
It's like, so I don't know.
I went to a concert of theirs, let's say 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Might be that's a guess. But never, as many concerts as I've gone to, I've never seen such a spectrum of ages. I mean, it was everything from kids that were probably 8 to men and women in their 50s.
Right.
And it was all like the boy or girl that was 8 was like the same level of fan as the man or woman that was 50. You know what I mean? Like, I had never seen that wide a range of age, of an age group at a concert before.
Well, I think it's a tough thing too, because when a band comes out, you want them to stay similar to their roots, but at the same time, grow. Right.
They played in the garage though when I saw them, which was cool for me. Because I remember when we were kids, we liked that song. I used to, they were on a short list of mine I had a Walkman, and you and I both had newspaper routes.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ride my bike, throw the papers, and listen to my Walkman. And their first album was a cassette. Well, for me, was a cassette.
Their first album was a cassette.
They only released it on cassette. Yeah. It was a thing. But no, that was one for me that was in my newspaper route.
The Blue album.
Yeah. But I didn't know what color it was because it was The cassette was the same color as all the other cassettes.
It was not a blue cassette.
No.
Maybe they did at some point make it a blue cassette. I wonder if they ever did.
In the Garage was a great song.
In the garage, I feel safe.
Yeah.
No one cares about my ways.
But yeah, I highly if anybody out there is looking for something that's not too heavy to watch, but will put you in a good mood and maybe inspire you to be good and be kind and don't litter, watch that Won't You Be My Neighbor, Fred Rogers show.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. I'm afraid I'll cry.
You might.
Did he have tattoos?
Not that I'm aware of. That is something that came up in the documentary, though.
Tattoos?
Well, no, there's a so he went through a period where people that didn't know him or didn't really understand him kind of would badmouth him or throw weird questions about him just out into the ether.
Right.
And one of the rumors was like they had all these rumors about, why is he, who is he, all that. One of the rumors was that he was some kind of Black Ops Navy SEAL guy who at one point had worked for the government in his younger years. Another rumor was that he was covered in tattoos on the portions of his body that you can't see on TV. One rumor was that he was homosexual.
Right.
They had all these rumors about him, and you got to watch the documentary. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that would be tough though too, because sometimes, like what you assume, I haven't seen the documentary, but what you assume is here's a guy that fell into a job, thought it was a good thing, but also had to deal with the backlash of whatever people think. Oh, he's a homosexual, or this guy maybe likes kids too much.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, people called that into question. And I think the documentary does his legacy a good deal of justice, and it also pointed out to me that he was actually more important of a person than I had thought going into watching it.
Well, and I mean, you're the only person that I know that has been through the same experience as I have. I mean, it's been somewhat different, but we go from guys that just wake up and we drive to our jobs and work our jobs and come home, and now we're not famous in the sense of like we don't like go on tour or but like I'll be at a bar and somebody will be like, hey, are you the captain? I always go, no, I'm Nick. That's what no, I'm Nick. Well, which one's your favorite? That's what I start with. Which one's your favorite? Oh, I like the captain. Oh, well, I'm the captain. If they say that they hate the captain, I'm like, oh, what? I go in the bathroom and shave my beard real quick. But it's strange, though, too, because, just the stuff that you can read about yourself online that is most of the time not true. Mm-hmm. But, I have friends that sometimes send me stuff, and some of the stuff that they were sending me this week was pretty ridiculous. I'm like, I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm learning some very bad things.
Right.
That obviously aren't true, but
well, they're not.
No. Well, I was hoping for some cool stuff, but it was all this stuff about that I have drug addictions and in and out of rehab, and that I was battling alcoholism. Which, look, battling alcoholism that's a serious thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if I was battling alcoholism, do you think I would feature a beer on a show that I helped produce? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So it's just kind of strange. So I guess I can relate to Mr. Rogers in a way of you wake up, try your best, your intentions are good. Our intentions are to entertain people and talk true crime, and sometimes there's backlashes to that for no reason.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I don't know. People can find better ways to spend their time. Or maybe they can't. That's the thing. Maybe it is that they can't. We've just given you plenty of shows and things to watch, right? We've just discussed a whole bunch of things worth watching.
And some things that are not worth watching.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that is true. One thing that is worth doing that we've not been very good about is reminding everybody about CrimeCon this year. CrimeCon 2019 in your face.
Who says we're not good about it?
What do you mean?
You just said one thing we're not good at.
I don't think we're good. We're good at reminding people about CrimeCon. So I just wanted to make sure that I threw that out there. That
we'll be there.
We will be there, and if
New Orleans
want to save 10% on your CrimeCon tickets, our code is TCG19.
This is the bonus.
TCG19. I know what it is.
This is the bonus show.
Well, we're covering all angles.
We're not supposed to have ads.
These are the only people that are going to show up. The people that listen to Off the Record will be
the coolest
at CrimeCon.
Hey, just to let you know, if you come up and tell me that you listen to Off the Record, I'm buying you a drink.
These are the people that show up to stuff when we do stuff. Is the Off the Record?
They're the people
so that's
that show
why
up to stuff when we do stuff.
That's why I'm making the announcement here, because if we announce it on the other show, it'll just fall on deaf ears.
Yeah, because they don't. People that listen to that show, they don't give a shit.
No, they don't.